Okay, so then, just when you thought he couldn't get dumber about shit, they go into Ukraine. So let me, is this, where is it? It's 50. Okay. Here we go.
Whatever, I'm not. But I took a lot of heat for the stuff I said on the show here a few years ago about the war in Ukraine.
And rightly so.
Look at it now, dude. Look at and I don't think they're about to end the thing. I think which we could talk about, but I think they're putting poison pills in these negotiations already. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, real quick. Nobody gives a fuck what you think about this. Like, you're going to think that shit. You pour nothing but nihilistic, isolationist horseshit into your fucking dome. And of course, the blender that is your brain is going to come up with, look, they must have a perfect deal, but somebody's fucking it up. It can't possibly be that Putin wants the entire country, and it couldn't possibly be that Ukraine doesn't want to just let the rapists get away with it. It couldn't possibly be that. They've got to have a deal, and it's got to be perfect.
Looks like to me. But literally, the deal that I was talking to you about, whatever it was, 3 years ago, when I was saying on the show that they had a deal worked out, a peace deal worked out in the first few months of the war in 22.
Oh, okay. This is the Boris Johnson bullshit.
And Boris Johnson went and killed the peace deal.
No, he did not. This is a fucking lie. I'm not going to call it misinformation or disinformation. This is a fucking lie. The Istanbul meeting between the Russians and the Ukrainians that the Biden administration put together that year to try and get them to work this shit out, the Ukrainians had already decided that the Russians weren't serious and they didn't trust them anyways. When their delegate came back, they met with Boris Johnson and he said, don't trust them. They only understand pressure. And they're like, dude, we know.
On behalf of the West to make sure this war kept going.
On behalf of the West. Yeah, that's what America sent Boris Johnson on our behalf. And so did France and Germany and the EU. They all got together and said, Boris Johnson's the fucking man to send.
But
by the way, Boris Johnson, who sucked up to Trump when he was in office, Biden's going to go, yeah. Have Boris Johnson go there. They'll listen to him.
Deal that was in pencil, not pen. That Boris Johnson.
No. It was not in pencil or pen. It never got to the actual draft position. They hung up on the talking points.
Johnson killed was essentially
basically. It was basically
recognition of the annexation of Crimea. It was, at the time, it wasn't annexation of the Donbass region. It was like independence for the Donbass region.
Right, which they would control.
And then the agreement that the rest of Ukraine would not join NATO. That was the deal that they had worked out. And look at where we are now.
Right. All demands and nothing for Ukraine. Listen to that. That's the deal. Listen to this dumb motherfucker. Okay, what were the talking points of the fucking deal? This is what he's like. Look, they had a deal. What was the deal? What was the deal?
Crimea, it was.
Sorry, let me go back.
And that Boris Johnson killed was essentially.
Essentially, this is the deal that somehow Ukraine was stupid not to take, but Boris Johnson fucked up on behalf of the West.
Recognition of the annexation of Crimea.
A Russian win.
It was, at the time, it wasn't annexation of the Donbass region. It was like independence for the Donbass region. And
and also, that never actually got pen to paper anywhere. He's just making that up. But the idea is that it would be a neutral territory controlled by neither, which Russia felt it could fill with its own people. It had arguably had. They would just funnel human beings into it because they have a larger population. Bullshit. Like, that party's just fucking pulling out of his ass.
The agreement that the rest of Ukraine would not join NATO.
Right. Okay. 3 Russian wins. Where's the fucking deal for Ukraine? Where's their security guarantees? Where's their sovereignty? Where's their fucking border protections? Where's their guarantee that Russia won't do this again? What the fuck kind of deal is that? It's not a deal. It's like, this is how fucking, and the dude's like, and they would have taken it. Now look at them. Fuck, they could have taken it. Jesus Christ. I've heard more cogent arguments from a ham sandwich.
That was the deal that they had worked out.
That's not a deal, motherfucker. That's 3 Russian demands that they get. What does Ukraine get out of it? What does Ukraine get out of it? Lost land and fuck you? What about their kids back? What about people, being, tried for war crimes for sending rape squads into their fucking country?
We are now. Now, the deal that they're even talking about, even as Donald Trump goes, there's going to be some land swaps and all this. Okay, well, what's he talking about? The deal right now that is the best case scenario that we're hoping we could.
No, it's not the best case scenario. If it was the best case scenario, the Ukrainians would have taken it. Also, they didn't have Kursk at the time, and they do now.
Is that Vladimir Putin obviously keeps Crimea.
Obviously.
Keeps the entire Donbass region, gets a corridor from the south into Crimea, and
if you have the Donbass, that is the corridor, dumb fuck.
The rest of Ukraine.
What? Does he not think that? Real quick. Well, how in the ever-loving shit? I'm gonna make this a little small. Hold on. This is the current area. Here's Zaporizhia. Here's Dnipro. Russians want this. They want Zaporizhia. They want Dnipro. They want Kharkiv. They want Sumy. They want all this area right here. They do not have it. Let me repeat that. They do not have Sumy. They do not have Kharkiv. They do not have any of this territory. They have lost this chunk in the last little bit. They have not moved along here. And the corridor he's talking about, it already exists in this area. If they had just if they froze the lines as now, what the fuck does he mean corridor? God damn. And here's the problem. Joe Rogan is sitting there going, God, this is so fucking nuts, because he can't even picture the fucking map in his head, even though they're talking about human lives and actual war and real shit. He can't even picture what that looks like or the area. Yeah, Ukraine has taken back giant chunks of land lately. And he's like, dude, they can't win. It's like Marjorie Taylor Greene level talking points. So fucking lazy.
Doesn't join NATO. So we have the same deal, just a little bit.
If they don't join NATO, or they don't have NATO-like protections, they're fucked, because Russia has no reason to not enter again. Also, we already had that agreement. The trilateral agreement was Ukraine, which had the third largest stockpiles of nukes in the world after the US and Russia. Ukraine had enough to make it third in the world. They give up their nukes, and we provide them with security guarantees for the 91 borders that they had. We had that agreement with Russia. Russia's like, they give up their nukes as part of this, and they're on our board. They don't have to join NATO. We're not going to invade. We promise. How'd that work out? 1997 Russian-NATO founding agreement said that if a country wants to join NATO or doesn't want to join NATO, it's up to them. Sergei Lavrov's bullshit quote about the third parties should have a say in it. No, in 1997, they signed a treaty saying it's up to Ukraine. This motherfucker has, and it's beyond just being bullishly isolationist and libertarian to the point of, like, just emotional toxicity. This motherfucker has no idea what he's talking about, because he only reads the details he wants to hear so that he can keep sucking Ron Paul's dick. Anything that interferes with job one, which is gargling Ron Paul's balls, is immediately cast out. It is shunt from the Amish territory that is his brain.
More in the Russians' favor 3 years later, with hundreds of thousands of people having died in that process.
Yeah, it's a fucking war, and Russia's lost more than Ukraine has. What does that tell you?
Just to get back to not as good a deal as they had.
No. The current deal that separates that entire area included area that Russia had not conquered yet.
In 22. And so...
Dude. And the fucked up part is listening to Joe Rogan fucking grunt in the background with this like, dude, this is crazy.
You know...
And if they don't sign that,
it'll keep going, which I think it's probably going to.
Yeah, it is. Because I guess the fucking Ukrainians just want to die, right? They're so stupid. These stupid fucking people. Why don't they just roll over and take it? I mean, they after this, they venture into, if if they didn't want Russia to attack, they shouldn't have worn that short skirt level shit. All right, next piece was, what was this? Set me off. Hold on. In
the NATO agreement that says that, like, it says that, like, if one of the countries is attacked.
Oh, yeah. Hold on.
The Ukrainians don't want to fight over this stuff anymore, so there's just no justification.
Oh, for he's saying basically, like, 70% of Ukrainians just want a peace deal no matter what. They don't care about the details. They don't give a shit. They just want the war to stop. They give Russia whatever they want. That's his argument. 70%. It's just fucking nonsense.
For it. So now they move to phase B, which is essentially to pretend like they're negotiating, but putting all types of poison pills in the deals.
Yeah, this is all like in his fucking head.
That the other side won't take it. This is what they did.
The other side. Meaning Russia. Because I guess they can't put... Can the U.S. intelligence community put in poison pills through Steve Witkoff that into Russia's plant? Like, it's just so stupid.
With Iran, too. This is why we got into that 12-day war, as they're calling it now. But, it's like you put things into I was just reading the other day. It was on Axios. There's
Sorry, assholes like you don't get to source mainstream media. Axios is mainstream. It's not right-wing. You can't shit all over it. But they do this with every fucking thing. The CIA's buying every bad thing in the world. But anyway, so I'm at a birthday party with fucking Tulsi Gabbard.
Reports that Zelensky and the Europeans are like open to land swaps as long as there's, in their words in the Axios piece, Article 5 like security guarantee.
Yeah. Why is that a problem? If Russia's not going to invade, who gives a shit what they call it? By the way, that's what we had on the trilateral agreement. That's what we had. We were supposed to provide for Ukraine's security if Russia invaded after we made them give their nukes back to Russia to dispose of. By the way, does anybody think Russia actually took those nukes and destroyed them like they said they would?
So in other words...
Oh, wait. And I don't think Joe knows what Article 5 is.
The rest of Ukraine's in NATO, which is the thing that caused the whole conflict to begin with.
Bullshit.
Oh, so, like, God. Yeah, and...
listen to... Oh, God.
That's what that means? Article 5?
You've been talking about this shit for fucking years. How dare you? Honest to God. How do you fucking... Like, just tap the fuck out. If you don't know what Article 5 is during this conversation, when this shit's been going on for fucking years, and you've been talking about it like Ukraine should just bend over and fucking take it, and Vladimir Putin's a fucking boss, and Trump's gonna be the peace president, and you've been shoveling that shit down your viewers' fucking throats for years, and then you're on fucking August 26th of 2025, you're like, that's what Article 5 means? Fuck you.
5 is the article in NATO, in the NATO agreement that says that, like, it says that, like, if one of the countries is attacked, like, all the countries have to join together to help. It doesn't exactly say you got to go to war over it, but it's like you have to help in the effort if they're attacked. So essentially, that...
An attack on one is an attack on all.
That's what they're trying to ask now, which is, but if you think about it, right, it's designed to incentivize Putin to keep the war going. Because
why? Finland's in it. So I'm sorry, that's done. Finland has a bigger fucking border. At least currently. So I guess Finland being in NATO is just going to keep the war going on forever anyways because they can't have a bigger NATO border with them? Fuck you. We can put all the missile defense systems in fucking Finland we want to. What are you talking about? It's a voluntary organization. Unlike the CSTO, the Russian version, which is done by force.
If you're telling Vladimir Putin, let's just say, which it's not exactly clear that he would even take the deal that I just laid out before.
He won't. It's exactly clear. He will not.
But it was, I know that it's been reported that he was...
It's been reported. Adorable.
Was being signaled that he might be open to that deal. I get the Donbass region. You know, he's got still... like the Donbass region is Donetsk and Luhansk. And in Luhansk, I think... As of right now, I think the Russians control like 75% of it. They got all of Donetsk. They got most of Luhansk. But there's still Ukrainians controlling part of it. And then he's controlling part of these territories in the south. So this is what Trump means when he says the land swaps, meaning essentially you get out of the Donbass region, give me that, and I'll give you back. You know, the land swaps are Putin taking what he wants and leaving you the rest. But...
right. And I can't imagine why the Ukrainians would have a problem with that, especially because their fucking citizens are there.
If you're going to tell Vladimir Putin, who fought this entire war over Ukrainian entry into NATO being his
bullshit
line,
that's a lie. It's a lie. It's just bullshit. There was no push to get them into NATO at all. He wanted their resources. The primary reason was for the impetus for doing it right now was the natural gas fields that were discovered outside of Crimea. You get the rights to the ones that are like, you know, up to 100 or 125 or 220 miles off your coast of Crimea, and there are a ton of them. And he wants to cut off that supply so that Ukraine can't sell it to Europe to replace the supplies coming from Russia and control those supplies themselves and put them through the Black Sea past Turkey in ships. Sell oil and gas that way. It's a resource war.
Basically, in the middle of the, or not in the middle of, as the war is potentially wrapping up, you're going to
potentially wrapping up.
Tell him, hey, whatever territory you don't take here will be a part of NATO. Well, what does that incentivize him to do?
Not pick a fight with fucking Finland?
Take more of it then. Then why would you stop and give the rest of it up? And it does seem to me like that is clearly, at least from the Europeans, that is clearly the motivation of all of this, is to present something. It's you know, they do have their chess war moves. And
all right. His argument here, this is so fucking stupid. And I got to like jump around in this and I hate doing this because usually I do things all the way through. But his argument that like the Europeans are just doing this to continue to provoke Russia because they don't care about Ukrainian deaths and it's a losing battle anyways, but they figure they can, I don't know, drive him crazy or some shit. It's so fucking dumb. Check this out though. Hold on. And that this is some sort of strategy that they have to like, we'll poke him.
So you present something that you know the other side can't agree to, and then when they don't agree to it, you go, look, we tried to negotiate.
Or you could present something logical and reasonable considering the fact that they attacked this country, that it would want protections like that, and you go, take it or fucking leave it, dummy. We don't trust you to not attack again. Ask Georgia. Ask Chechnya. Ask Kazakhstan. The fuck? Just the same fucking... No wonder he was at a fucking meeting with Ron Paul and Tulsi Gabbard. Jesus Christ. And by the way, defending Sergei Lavrov quotes in this that were worse than the way Woodward quoted him. All right, so let me go to this next one. This is probably the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard as an analogy for Russia and Ukraine.
Because he goes, look, this goes back to 2014. And so I'm watching this and I got like so excited for a minute. Like I was like, yes, it does go back to 2014.
because he thinks there was a coup and all this stuff, and that poor Ukraine with their Russian sock puppet Yanukovych, which he'll never mention his name, by the way. He'll just you'll notice these motherfuckers never talk about Yanukovych, Poroshenko, and then into Zelensky and the process that they got from one to the other. They'll never name Yanukovych and what they're talking about because they can't defend Yanukovych, so they do this kind of like Ukraine as if it was now or then. The same thing with Trump doing the whole like Obama gave them sheets and I gave them javelins. Like, that's because it was a different fucking president.
Thank you, Donald Trump. And then it goes back to 2014 when Putin took Crimea and Obama let him have it. He just let him have it. Never would have happened on my watch, but Obama gave Putin Ukraine. And you're like, no, dude, that's not. Just go back 2 months earlier in that same year. The problem wasn't that Obama gave Putin Ukraine. The problem was that Obama took Ukraine away from Vladimir Putin.
Did you hear that? Obama took Ukraine away from Vladimir Putin 2 months before they invaded in 2014. Just let that gel for a second.
Played on your show, and you played with Tulsi Gabbard. The director of national intelligence has sat right here where I'm sitting and watched Gideon Rose explain to Stephen Colbert.
Right. You mean the woman who was at Ron Paul's fucking birthday party with you and you all are in line with these fucking Kremlin talking points that are materially lies. And also the CIA and the intelligence community in the United States is behind every awful thing in the world until they're your fucking friend that you go to birthday parties with, and then they can be trusted. Just wait.
Exactly what we're doing here. Russia, as Gideon Rose, the editor of Foreign Affairs magazine, said.
The editor of Foreign Affairs magazine. Give it to us, big boy.
Russia is Batman. Ukraine is Robin. We are stealing Robin away from Batman.
Yeah. And apparently, in order to get Robin back, Batman sends in his friends to rape Robin's relatives. For real. This is just goofy. And I have no doubt that this motherfucker will say that Bucha didn't happen. Like, there's no question. He'll go, that's media fabrication and blah, blah. You can believe his bullshit half-ass story about Boris Johnson because he's got sources that when he looks them up will turn out to be bullshit, for the record. Because the delegates that were at the meeting in Istanbul are all quoted as saying, we had already told them to go pound sand when we came home before Boris Johnson told us not to trust them. We know. Batman and fucking Robin? I had no idea Robin was only with Batman so that he could do what he was told lest his relatives get raped and murdered. Seriously, the dumbest analogy I have ever heard about this entire thing. It's goofy beyond comprehension. Fuck Dave Smith's lying bullshit. And fuck Joe Rogan for guzzling this garbage across the desk going, wow, I never really thought of it that way. Not even knowing what fucking Article 5 is. If you don't know what Article 5 is, you shouldn't be letting this asshole shovel, Tulsi Gabbard's fucking talking points down your empty fucking gullet. Oh my God. Who's Alfred in this? Belarus, I guess. Holy shit. And of course, I guess in this whole thing, we're the Penguin. Some shit.
That's what the Maidan Revolution was. That's why the USAID and the NED poured $100 million into the street protest, right? And so they overthrew.
Also a lie. Okay, hold on. I'm going to bring this up. Hold on. Yeah. Okay, here we go. This is from RFK Jr. is where a lot of this came from, but it wasn't even $100 million. It was $5 billion, a $5 billion investment. In an interview with Tucker Carlson, Robert Kennedy Jr. stated that the U.S. through USAID invested $5 billion in Ukraine for the 2014 Maidan under the pretense of promoting, quote, freedom and democracy. He emphasized this funding followed the overthrow of a democratically elected government that had refused to take sides, which is nonsense. Again, Yanukovych and Paul Manafort were working together. Dive into what kind of person Paul Manafort is and the fact that he arranged for snipers to shoot people in the Revolution of Dignity. And this motherfucker knows nothing about that. Or will, if he knows anything about it, he knows this much and he will ignore it. He will just dismiss it outright. Let's see. Recurring pro-Kremlin disinformation narratives about the 2014 protests in Kyiv falsely portray as a coup led by the U.S. and the West about the West support for alleged Nazi regime. Yeah, we've heard all that part. Framing all popular protests against Russia's interests as a foreign-led color revolution is something they do all the time, right? Yeah, Detector Media reports that Russian state channels have long pushed such false narratives that Euromaidan was a U.S.-sponsored coup using relentless repetition and flooding across multiple platforms and languages. Disinformation has been reinforced by Russian officials, including Putin and Lavrov, who repeated it just 2 months ago in an interview, once again in an interview with Tucker Carlson. That's what they're referring to. And I want to remind you that these guys think that the CIA is behind every bad thing that's ever happened, and it's obvious and true. And the reason they know this is because they read it in American newspapers, which are free to report it. But the Russians have never been engaged in any of this kind of behavior. They're clearly the good guys in this, and poor Lavrov is always being misquoted.
The government, and then a bunch of the former Ukrainian prime ministers started floating out that we should tear up the Sevastopol lease in Crimea, because, you know, this is Russia's only year-long warm water naval port. They've always had it. This was their agreement. They had like a 50-year lease or something like that. But after the West backed a coup that overthrew the government and put in a pro-Western government, they started talking big, like, well, maybe we'll tear up that lease. And so Vladimir Putin went, no.
So that's the idea. I thought it was about NATO expansion. Is there NATO expansion in any of that? Apparently, we put a coup d'etat in there to replace Yanukovych with Poroshenko, of all fucking people, who both agreed that the country should move more towards Europe, which is what really was bugging Vladimir Putin. Not NATO at all, but the commercial indications of it and the lack of those resources, because this is a resource war. This is raping and pillaging the old school way.
No, I'll just take it. And that was like, so anyway, so he...
And you're cool with that. You're cool with that. So they had corrupted their government. They kick out this guy who was a puppet for Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin had been undermining their legal system and their government system for years. They finally get rid of the fucker. And then they go, you know what? We're going to get rid of the leases. This is his argument, not mine. We're going to get rid of the lease that they have because it's illegitimate, because they've been fucking with us this whole time. And it's justified that Putin invade because he's going to lose his lease on this territory. So explain to me how England should have invaded Hong Kong and stolen it back after the 99-year lease was up then. They would have been justified according to this motherfucker.
Goes back to that, doesn't go back a few months earlier, and then misses the entire point.
Which is not the point and is a lie, and he's making it up. Yeah, Dave is full of, like, blazingly full of shit on this and is trying so fucking hard. And he's like a pig in shit right now because he's talking to Joe Rogan, who is stunningly misinformed about all this. Knows nothing about the Russia-NATO founding agreement of 97, knows nothing about the trilateral agreement about the denuclearization of Ukraine and the security guarantees that we gave him before, knows nothing about CSTO expansion that NATO was in response to. I mean, arguably, the biggest expansion in NATO was caused directly by Russia's invasion of Ukraine and Georgia and Chechnya. That's why they did it. They're like, holy fuck, this bullshit about where your peaceful neighbor is a bunch of garbage. They're going to take back all their areas, and then they're going to become a nuclear power Mother Russia again, and then they're going to attack the rest of us like they'd originally planned. You know how we know? Because they fucking said so.